Hi everyone, my name is Charlie and today I have the mid-year book freakout tag. I don't believe that I did this tag last year, or the year before for that matter, but it's something that as we're approaching the end of June and I can't see me finding any new favourites in that time, I thought I would make time for. The first question regards the best book I have read so far in 2019. So I went back to the book in which I keep track of my reading, and I saw 3 books that could fit into this. And this one almost didn't make it because it's a short story collection, but it is Heads of the Coloured People by Nafissa Thompson Spaz. It's the best book I've read so far because it's the one that I keep thinking about. And it's the one that when I think about what I'm going to be putting on my favourites list at the end of the year, I feel as though it's already there. To me, it's the most memorable. The stories I found brilliant. I will leave a link to the video in which I reviewed it. The story in here, entitled Suicide Watch, is stuck in my mind as being superb, as being a brilliant look at the modern day individual, as well as being filled with this dark humour that I particularly enjoyed. Indeed, the final page of the story had me laughing, going around the house telling everybody about what I just read. And that story's still there, it's still in my head. And so, based on that one story alone, this had to be the best book that I have read so far. Next is the best sequel I have read so far in 2019, and that was easy. It's Fool's Quest by Robin Hobb. This is the second book in the Fitz and the Fool trilogy, the final trilogy in this realm of the Elderling series, and as such I can't tell you anything that happens in this book, but I've only reviewed it recently because me and Lindsay are planning on finishing off this series over the next month or so. And basically, I thought it was going to go slow. I thought I wasn't going to like it. After the page 200 mark, Robin Hobb just gathered pace, and I ended up finishing this book in a day at that point. It's fantastic. Completely recommend. Next is new release you haven't read yet but want to. For me, that is The Old Drift by Nomwali Serpal. I had this book recommended to me by Amazon. I know, we don't really like them. And then I saw Matthew of MCS Books talk about it. And when I saw that video and I heard him talk about it and this idea that it's reminiscent of certain books that I've enjoyed in the past, I can't remember which ones, but in my head I'm thinking Homegoing, I'm thinking Pachinko, I'm thinking Big Family Sagas, which I realised that I really enjoy. I actually have yes I do, I have a NetGalley edition of this on my Kindle that I started, but I realised I wanted to own the book, so I've only read about 10 to 20 pages of it, but this is one that has been put on my TBR every single month and I've just not got to. But that's, you know, that'll change by the end of the year, maybe, possibly, probably not. Next we have my biggest disappointment, and that was Moriarty by Anthony Horowitz. For reasons why, please go and watch my review. I will leave a link to that. But basically, I was thoroughly enjoying this book. It's after the supposed death of Sherlock Holmes at the Reichenbach Falls, as it's supposedly the death of Moriarty, and is told from the perspective of this character. I can't even remember his name now, but there is a huge twist at the end that just cuts the story off midway, and you don't really get any resolution to any of the story that happened before that. It's just kind of Anthony Horowitz jumping the shark moment, and and because of that, I just found the final 20 pages or so just hate reading them, which I never like to say that I do that, but this twist annoyed me so much. I thought that at first it was just a bit of bad writing, a bit of pronoun misuse, but no, it was a disappointment, and I'm not over it. Next is The Biggest Surprise, and for that I went with The Half God of Rainfall by Inwar Alams. I read this for Cozy Reading Night. If this was one of the contenders to be my favourite book of the year, and I only didn't allow it that because it's a narrative poem. But that's it. It's a narrative poem that it takes the modern day, blends African mythology and Greek mythology, and sees the women that Zeus has wronged seeking retribution for something wrong he has done. Now, there is a strange rhyme scheme in here that I kept talking about wanting to emulate, because sometimes it would rhyme and sometimes it wouldn't, and then there was this rhythm and this beat, and it's bloody fantastic, really. Next is my favourite new author, which is a debut or new to me, and for that I went with Frederick Barkman, because I read this book. My grandmother sends her regards and apologises, and people have been reading Frederick Barkman for years now. You know, he's got The Man Called Ove and all that stuff, and Brit Marie was here. And this was sent to me by the Willoughby Book Club, and after a few disappointments last year from their service, I hadn't read this, but I decided to give it a go. I was looking for a comedic novel that would remind me of The Trouble with Goats and Sheep. That's not what I got. That is not what I got at all. I got this really sentimental novel that dealt with childhood grief, and as mentioned, had me going over every facet of grief. And I kept meaning to do a discussion of this and just kept putting it off, because it was going to deal with how our sentimentality and our feelings towards the story can colour our view. And I thought, that's just really stupid. If I liked a book because of what it made me feel, whether or not I thought the writing was good, whether or not I thought it was too sentimental or it made me feel nostalgic, that doesn't matter. If it made me feel some kind of way and I enjoyed it, I'm allowed to say that I enjoyed it. So yeah, Frederick Barkman ended up being a writer that I didn't expect to enjoy, but I ended up enjoying, and whose works I should go and check out more of in the future. Then we have the question, number 8. Newest fictional crush. Number 9. Newest favourite character. Bridie Devine from Things in Jars by Jess Kidd. I only read it last month. She's the finest female detective of her generation. I just really enjoyed her character. That's all I have to say. She's my new favourite character. I felt, when I was reading Things in Jars, I felt as though she had a story there that we weren't getting to see, and that this was kind of the middle book in a gothic crime series, and I would have loved an entire series of books about her and her exploits, because I just thoroughly enjoyed this one and thoroughly enjoyed the strangeness and the almost Addams Family vibe about this book, and she was the perfect heroine for that book. And you know, she's got all these weird skills that come in really handy that she's not supposed to have because of the era in which the book is set, and she's just throwing convention out the window, and it's brilliant. Then we had Book That Made You Cry, or Saddest Book You Have Read, and we're actually going back to My Grandmother Sends Her Regards and Apologises, because, as I mentioned in my reading vlog for this book, I was at Costa Coffee, they're about to have the funeral, and Elsa is really upset about the fact that this is her grandmother's funeral, and everybody else is feeling grief, but nobody understands that this is the most important person in her life. And so, whilst I wanted to continue reading in Costa, I put the book down and just sat mulling over my coffee, because whilst I did not cry at the book, I worried there was a chance that I might. Book That Made You Happy. I considered mentioning my own book here, because I did reread it and I am incredibly narcissistic. But I decided to go with Guards by Terry Pratchett. I mentioned Carrot from that book before, but once again, this reminded me of the humour from Mort. I listen to these books quite quickly whilst I'm doing other things, and I just find the humour in Guards hitting the mark really well. It's a bit like Carry On meets Police Academy with this book, where this guy who thinks he's a dwarf but he's not a dwarf gets sent off to join the city guard, and he's a bit too good at his job. And he gets into all these different scrapes that end up leading into all this myriad of stories that all tangle together. And I've never tried to read them, and I hear a lot of people don't like them, but if you listen to them, the guy who narrates them, Nigel Planer, this was Nigel Planer, has a really good comedic timing. Really lends itself well to these stories. So yeah. 12 is favourite book to film adaptation you've seen this year. I don't watch a lot of films. We all know this. And there is only one adaptation that I've seen this year, and I watched it with my nephew a fortnight ago when he was down, and that is Romeo and Juliet. Admittedly, there were parts of it made me laugh, with some dirty jokes that my nephew was too young to understand. I was laughing at it. So 13 is favourite review you've written this year, with the proviso for Booktube favourite video you have done so far this year. Now, I missed out on like January and February, didn't I? So let's just go back through. Laptop's right here. Yeah, I'm just going to go with my reading vlog done wrong that I released last month, because I'm no good at reading vlogs, and there's a dog in that video. Then we have most beautiful book you've bought this year or received. The Strawberry Thief by Joanne Harris. It's literally the only one that I could think of that might fit into this whole beautiful thing, because we all know that beauty is subjective, and I don't have any of the nice editions that the other booktubers I've seen doing this tag have held up. But there's this one. This is another one I'm looking forward to, a new release. I should probably read this one. The final question is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? And the answer is none of them. I don't need to read anything. Nobody is here holding my arm behind my back and saying you must read this, you know, get cracking the whip and all that fun stuff. Apart from my coordinated TBR, which I'm just going to go out slowly, there's no threat. There is nothing that means I have to read anything. There are some books I'd like to get to, but I don't need to read them. I suppose I ought to tag some people to do this tag. So we're going to have some usual suspects here. We're going to have Dane from Dane Reads. We're going to have Matthew of MCS Books, Emma of Emma Rosen Books. Let's shove Beth of Beth Chats Books in. 5, Charlie Brooke. But also, you know, anyone else who wants to do this tag, feel free to do it. I do enjoy watching these videos, and they come round every year, and you don't have to answer the crush question, because nobody wants to answer the crush question. Unless it was about ice crushed. You know, like when they make your iced latte at the coffee shop, but they don't make it as well as you make it at home, but you feel like you're paying for the privilege of them having made it. You don't know what I'm talking about. Anyway, yeah. Them's the books. It's got considerably darker in this room, and I'm sorry about that, but there's nothing I can do about it. If you've read any of these books and would like to discuss them, please feel free to do so down in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this video, and until next time, that is all.